The colony ship New Horizon drifted through the empty space between stars. Inside, 300 families slept in suspended animation, dreaming of their new home on a distant planet. Captain Lee Do-hyun sat in the command chair, watching the stars scroll past on the view screen. He had made this journey 12 times before. It should have been routine. The alarm changed everything. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," Ensign Kim Yuna called from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. 20 ships. No, 30. They're surrounding us. Lee Do-hyun felt his stomach tighten. In 20 years of space travel, he had never seen a hostile fleet. Humanity had been peaceful with every alien species they met. Why would that change now? The ships were massive, built like predators, dark metal hulls covered in weapon ports. They moved with precise coordination, forming a cage around the New Horizon. Each one was 3 times larger than his colony ship. "Open a channel," Lee Do-hyun ordered. "Let's find out what they want." The view screen flickered. A face appeared that made several crew members gasp. The alien was tall, with scaled skin the color of dried blood. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. When it opened its mouth, rows of sharp teeth gleamed under harsh lighting. "I am Commander Thalrex of the Vrax Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and carried absolute certainty. "You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your vessel." Lee Do-hyun stood slowly. "I am Captain Lee Do-hyun of Earth. We are a civilian vessel carrying colonists. We have no weapons. What is the purpose of this boarding?" Thalrex laughed. It was an ugly sound. "The purpose is to deliver a message to your pathetic species. You will cooperate or you will die. The choice is simple." The channel cut off before Lee Do-hyun could respond. He looked at his crew. Dr. Park Ji-won, the ship's medical officer, met his eyes. She had been his friend for 15 years. She gave him a small nod. Whatever happened, they would face it together. "Wake the security team," Lee Do-hyun said quietly. "But tell them not to start anything. We have families on this ship." 10 minutes later, the boarding pods attached to the New Horizon with metallic clangs that echoed through the hull. The airlock doors hissed open. Vrax soldiers poured into the ship like a dark tide. They were enormous, each one at least 7 feet tall, wearing armor that looked like it could stop anything humanity had invented. Commander Thalrex walked through the corridors as if he owned them. His soldiers pointed weapons at every human they passed. The crew of the New Horizon stood frozen, unsure what to do. These were scientists, engineers, farmers, not soldiers. Thalrex reached the bridge and looked around with obvious contempt. "This is your command center? Primitive, inefficient, your species is barely worthy of our attention. What do you want?" Lee Do-hyun asked. He kept his voice calm, but his fists were clenched at his sides. Thalrex pulled out a small device and tossed it onto the navigation console. "That contains our demands. You will take it to your homeworld. You will deliver it to your leaders. They have 72 hours to respond. What are the demands?" Dr. Park Ji-won asked. She had moved quietly to her medical station and was scanning the Vrax with her instruments. Thalrex didn't seem to notice. "The demands are simple," Thalrex said. "Humanity will abandon all colonies beyond your home system. You will surrender all military vessels to Vrax control. You will provide tribute in resources and technology. You will accept Vrax oversight of your civilization. These are not negotiations. These are terms of your surrender." The bridge fell silent. Ensign Kim Yuna stared at her console, her face pale. The other crew members looked at each other in shock. Surrender? They hadn't even been at war. "And if we refuse?" Lee Do-hyun asked. Thalrex smiled. It was worse than his laugh. "Then we will exterminate your species. We have done it before. 47 civilizations have fallen before the Vrax Empire. You will be the 48th, or you will be smart and submit." Lee Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest. This creature had invaded his ship, threatened his crew, demanded humanity bow to an empire they had never even heard of. Every instinct told him to fight back, but he had 300 sleeping families to protect. "I'll deliver your message," he said finally, "but I want you off my ship now." Thalrex tilted his head. "You want? You are in no position to want anything, human. But I will leave. After a demonstration." "Demonstration?" Lee Do-hyun took a step forward. "What are you talking about?" Thalrex gestured to his soldiers. They grabbed 3 crew members at random. A young engineer named Song Min-jae, a botanist named Lee Hee-jin, a maintenance worker named Choi Do-yeon, They struggled, but the Vraks were far stronger. "No," Lee Do-hyun shouted. "Leave them alone." "This is what happens to species who resist," Thalrex said calmly. He drew a weapon from his belt. It looked like a rod of black metal. "Your leaders need to understand the cost of defiance." The weapon hummed with energy. Thalrex pointed it at Song Min-jae. The young engineer looked at Lee Do-hyun with terrified eyes. "Please," Song Min-jae whispered. "Please, Captain," the weapon fired. There was a flash of light. Song Min-jae screamed. Then he fell silent. His body hit the floor and didn't move. The smell of burned flesh filled the bridge. "Stop this." Dr. Park Ji-won ran forward, but a Vrak soldier grabbed her and threw her back. She hit the wall hard. Thalrex executed Lee Hee-jin next, then Choi Do-yeon. 3 bodies on the bridge floor. 3 people who had been alive and talking just minutes ago. 3 families who would never see their loved ones again. Lee Do-hyun shook with rage. He wanted to attack Thalrex with his bare hands. He wanted to make this monster pay for what he had done. But he was unarmed, and the Vrak soldiers had weapons pointed at the rest of his crew. "Remember this moment," Thalrex said. "Remember what resistance costs. Deliver our message. 72 hours. If your leaders are wise, they will surrender. If they are fools, we will turn every human world into ash." The Vrak soldiers left as quickly as they had come. The boarding pods detached. The alien fleet held position for a moment, then vanished into hyperspace. The bridge of the New Horizon was silent except for quiet sobbing. Dr. Park Ji-won knelt beside the bodies, checking for signs of life even though she knew it was hopeless. Ensign Kim Yuna had her head in her hands. The other crew members stood like statues trying to process what they had just witnessed. Lee Do-hyun walked to the navigation console and picked up the device Thalrex had left. It was small, cold, and felt heavy in his hand. Inside this device were demands that would end humanity's freedom. Submit or die. Those were the only choices. "Captain," Dr. Park Ji-won said softly. She had closed the eyes of the dead crew members. "What do we do?" Lee Do-hyun looked at the device, then at his crew, then at the stars beyond the view screen. "We deliver the message. We go to Earth, we tell them what happened here. Do you think they'll surrender?" Ensign Kim Yuna asked. Lee Do-hyun thought about that question. He thought about humanity's history. All the wars, all the struggles, all the times people had been told to submit or die. And he thought about what humans always chose. "No," he said quietly. "I don't think they will." The New Horizon turned toward Earth and engaged its faster-than-light drive. Behind them, 3 bodies lay in the medical bay, wrapped in sheets. The first casualties of a war that hadn't officially started yet, but it would start soon. Because humanity had just been given an ultimatum by an empire that didn't understand one simple truth. There are some species you can conquer, and some species you can only kill, and the Vrak's empire was about to learn which one humanity was. The Vrak's War Council chamber was carved from solid stone designed to intimidate. High Commander Vexithar stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing human colonies scattered across space. Each one was marked in red like drops of blood waiting to be spilled. "The humans have rejected our terms," an aide reported. The young Vrax officer named Korvan looked nervous as he spoke. Their government sent a single message in response. "Show me," Vexthar commanded. The message appeared on the main display. Just 3 words in the human language translated by their computers. "Come and take it," several officers laughed. Vexthar smiled with all his teeth showing. Brave words from a species that has existed in space for barely 3 centuries. "How many warships do they possess?" Korvan checked his datapad. "Intelligence reports approximately 800 vessels that could be classified as military. Mostly corvettes and frigates. Their largest ships are colony transports converted with basic weapons. No energy shields. No plasma cannons. They still use kinetic projectiles." "Kinetic projectiles," another officer repeated with contempt. "Like throwing rocks. 47 civilizations we have conquered and none were so primitive." Vexthar studied the displays. 15 human colonies, total population around 2 billion, a tiny fraction of the Vrax Empire's military might. This would not be a war. It would be an extermination that took a few weeks at most. "Prepare the armada," Vexthar ordered. "We will crush their outer colonies first. When they see their people burning, they will remember what it means to refuse the Vrax." On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath Geneva, Admiral Choi Min-ho was having a very different conversation. The United Government Defense Council had given him complete authority to prepare for war. He was 70 years old with white hair and tired eyes. He had spent 50 years studying military history from every human culture. Now he would put that knowledge to use. "We can't win a conventional war," Admiral Choi said to the assembled officers. "The Vraks have better ships, better weapons, better numbers. If we try to fight them fleet to fleet, we'll lose in a week. Then what do we do?" asked Colonel Kang Sora. She was the commander of Earth's Special Operations Forces, a woman known for thinking outside normal military doctrine. "Surrender?" Admiral Choi smiled. It was not a happy smile. "No, we make them wish they had never heard of humanity. We don't fight the war they expect. We fight the war they're not prepared for." He activated a holographic display showing human history. Images of ancient battles appeared. Vietnam, Afghanistan, the guerrilla wars that had broken empires throughout the centuries. Every great military power that has fallen made the same mistake, Admiral Choi explained. They assumed their strength guaranteed victory. They forgot that the will to fight matters more than the size of your army. "The Vraks are expecting us to line up our ships and fight honorably. We're going to disappoint them." Engineer O. Taijin, a scientist who had been working on experimental weapons, leaned forward. "You want to use asymmetric warfare? Against an interstellar empire?" "Exactly," Admiral Choi confirmed. "Colonel Kang, your special operations teams will target their supply lines. Every fuel depot, every ammunition store, every repair facility. If the Vraks want to conquer our space, they'll do it without supplies." "What about our colonies?" asked another officer. "The Vraks will attack civilians." Admiral Choi's face became hard. "Every colony will be given a choice. Evacuate or stay and fight. Those who stay will be armed and trained. We'll turn every building into a fortress, every street into a kill zone. The Vraks can take our colonies, but it will cost them blood. A lot of blood. That's mass casualties," someone protested. "Millions could die. Billions will die if we surrender," Admiral Choi shot back. "The Vraks don't just want to rule us. They want to break us. Make us slaves. I'd rather die fighting than live on my knees. And I think most of humanity feels the same way." The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. "What about offensive capabilities?" Engineer O. Taijin asked. "Can we hurt them?" Admiral Choi nodded. "Show them Project Thunderchild." Engineer O. Taijin activated another display. It showed a simple design. A metal rod, 20 feet long, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. "Kinetic kill vehicles," he explained. "The Vraks think our kinetic weapons are primitive. They don't understand physics. Accelerate enough mass to high enough velocity, and you don't need explosives. The kinetic energy alone is devastating." "How fast can these go?" Colonel Kang asked. "0.9 C, Engineer O. Taijin said quietly. 90% the speed of light. At that velocity, a tungsten rod has the destructive force of a nuclear weapon. And it's almost impossible to detect or intercept." The officers stared at the display. This was not primitive technology. This was human engineering pushed to its absolute limits. "Start production," Admiral Choi ordered. "I want thousands of these platforms hidden throughout our territory. When the Vraks come, they'll learn that humanity's primitive weapons can still kill." 3 days later, the Vraks Armada arrived at Proxima Centauri, humanity's furthest colony. 200 warships appeared in orbit around the small settlement. High Commander Vexthar expected immediate surrender. Instead, he received a transmission from the colony governor. "You want Proxima? Come down here and take it." Vexthar was amused. The colony had maybe 50,000 people. His ground forces numbered 200,000 warriors. This would be over in hours. It was not over in hours. The Vraks dropships descended through the atmosphere and immediately started taking fire. Not from military installations, but from everywhere. Apartment buildings, schools, shopping centers. Every human seemed to have a weapon. Every structure seemed to be fortified. Vraks warriors landed expecting easy targets. Instead, they found themselves in a nightmare of urban warfare. Humans ambushed them from hidden positions. Automated turrets popped up from underground bunkers. Children threw explosives from rooftops before disappearing into tunnel networks. "This is insane," Corvin reported from the ground. "They're using civilian areas as battlefields. Women and children are fighting alongside soldiers. They're not even trying to preserve their colony." "Then destroy it," Vexthar ordered. "Show them the price of resistance." The Vraks began leveling buildings with orbital bombardment. Entire city blocks vanished in fire. But the humans kept fighting. When the Vraks finally reached the colony's administrative center after 2 weeks of brutal combat, they found it empty except for a recorded message. "You can have the ashes," a human voice said. "Hope they were worth it." The building exploded. 40 Vraks warriors died in the blast. Vexithar looked at the casualty reports in disbelief. 40 ships lost to automated defense platforms that had been hiding in asteroid fields. 12,000 warriors dead taking a single small colony. Supplies running low because their rear bases kept exploding mysteriously. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're primitives." Corvin pulled up footage from the battle. It showed human soldiers fighting with desperate ferocity. One clip showed a wounded human, clearly dying, crawling toward a Vrak's position with a grenade in his hand. He detonated it, killing himself and 3 Virax warriors. "They're not fighting to win," Corvin said quietly. "They're fighting to make sure we lose too. Every victory costs us more than it should. At this rate, we'll conquer their entire species, but it might destroy our army in the process." Vexithar struck the console in front of him. "Impossible. We are Vraks. We have conquered 47 civilizations. These humans are nothing." But deep down he was starting to feel something the Vraks Empire hadn't felt in 1,000 years. Doubt. In Earth's command bunker, Admiral Choi Minho watched the reports from Proxima Centauri. 50,000 colonists dead, the settlement destroyed, but the Vraks had paid dearly for it. Colonel Kang Sora entered and saluted. "Operation Hornet's Nest is proceeding as planned. We've destroyed 34 Vrak supply depots. Their fleet is running on limited fuel and ammunition." "Good," Admiral Choi said. "Let them come deeper into our territory. The further they go, the longer their supply lines. The longer their supply lines, the more we can hurt them." "Admiral," Engineer Otajan called from his station. "We just detected the main Vrak's fleet moving toward New Sol Colony. They're bringing 500 ships. Then New Sol will give them a fight they'll never forget." Admiral Choi said grimly. "Signal the colony. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold as long as they can." He didn't say what everyone in the room already knew. Help might not arrive in time. New Sol might fall. But it would hurt the Vrak so badly that they would start questioning whether conquering humanity was worth the cost. And that was the beginning of victory. Private Yoon Jiho was 19 years old when the Vraks came to New Sol. He had joined the Colonial Defense Force 6 months earlier, expecting to spend his service doing patrol duty and helping civilians. Instead, he found himself in the middle of the bloodiest battle in human history. New Sol was home to 2 million people. It was built on a planet with perfect weather and rich soil. The colonists had created something beautiful: parks, universities, art galleries. They had worked for 20 years to build a civilization worth defending. The Vrak's fleet arrived like a storm. 500 warships darkened the sky. Private Yoon Jiho watched from his position on the perimeter wall as dropships began their descent. Thousands of them carrying warriors who had never known defeat. "All units, this is Colonel Nam Jasu," the radio crackled. "We're outnumbered 10 to 1. Command says reinforcements are 3 weeks away. Our orders are to hold New Sol as long as possible. Make every street cost them blood. Make every building a fortress. If we're going to die, we die on our feet." Private Yoon Jiho checked his rifle. It was a simple weapon that fired metal slugs. The Vraks had energy weapons, advanced armor, centuries of military experience. But his rifle still worked, and he knew how to use it. The first wave of Vrak's warriors landed on the outskirts of the city. They advanced in formation, confident and unstoppable. They encountered the first line of human defense: automated turrets hidden in civilian buildings. The turrets opened fire. Hundreds of Vraks fell in the first seconds, but hundreds more kept coming. They reached the human positions and the real fighting began. Private Yoon Jiho fired until his rifle overheated. He saw a Vrak's warrior, massive and armored, charging toward his position. He pulled the trigger. The warrior fell. Another took its place. He kept firing. "Fall back!" someone shouted. "Fall back to the second line." Private Yoon Jiho and his unit retreated through the streets. They had planned this. Every retreat was calculated, leading the Vraks deeper into the city. Into the kill zones. The Vrak's warriors pursued them into a plaza. Explosives buried in the ground detonated. Buildings on both sides collapsed, burying hundreds of Vraks in rubble. But still they came. The battle for New Sol lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of constant fighting. 6 weeks of watching friends die, 6 weeks of killing and surviving and wondering which day would be the last. Private Yoon Ji-ho kept a video diary. He recorded messages for his family, not knowing if they would ever see them. On day 12, he recorded, "We held apartment building 7 for 3 days. Just my squad, 12 of us against hundreds. We ran out of ammunition on the 3rd day. We used kitchen knives. We used furniture as barricades. We threw pots full of chemicals. When they finally broke through, only 3 of us were left. But we killed maybe 50 of them. Maybe more. I hope it was worth it." On day 28, he recorded, "I don't know my squad anymore. Most of them are dead. I'm with strangers now. We all look the same. Tired, dirty, scared. But we keep fighting. The colonel says every day we hold is another day humanity prepares. I guess that's something." Back on Earth, Dr. Hwang Suman was studying captured Vrax prisoners. She was a psychologist specializing in alien behavior. What she discovered changed everything. The Vrax are psychologically fragile, she explained to Admiral Choi Min-ho. They've won so many wars so easily that they've lost the mental conditioning for prolonged conflict. They expect quick victories. When they don't get them, they break down. How do we use that? Admiral Choi asked. Dr. Hwang Suman smiled coldly. We make this war personal. We make them see every soldier they lose as an individual, not a number. We broadcast their names. We send messages to their families. We make sure every Virac citizen knows exactly what this war costs. Colonel Kang Sora implemented what they called Operation Echo. Every time a Vrax warrior died, humanity's communication networks broadcast their name, their home city, their family status. Letters were sent to Vrax families describing how their loved ones died. Videos showed wounded Vrax soldiers crying for help that never came. It was psychological warfare at its finest. And it was working. On the Vrax homeworld, protests began. Families demanded answers. Why were so many warriors dying? Why was a war against primitives taking so long? The government had promised a quick victory. Instead, casualty lists grew longer every day. Rindal was a Vrax warrior who survived the Battle of New Seoul. He had watched his entire unit die in an ambush. A human grenade had wounded him badly. He expected execution when humans captured him. Instead, Dr. Park Ji-won treated his wounds. She cleaned his injuries, gave him medicine, and spoke to him gently. You're a prisoner of war, she told him. That means we follow rules. We don't torture. We don't kill prisoners. We're not monsters, even if your commander thinks we are. Rindal didn't understand. His people had been taught humans were weak, emotional, unable to make hard choices. But these humans fought with savage determination. They made choices that would haunt them forever, but they made them anyway. Why do you fight so hard? He asked Dr. Park Ji-won. You could surrender. We would let you live. As slaves, she replied. We'd rather die free than live in chains. Maybe your people forgot what that feels like. Rindal thought about that for a long time. He was sent home with other prisoners as part of a prisoner exchange. But he was changed. He had seen humans die defending their homes. He had seen them show mercy to their enemies. He had seen a kind of courage his people had forgotten existed. Engineer Oh Tae-jin completed the final version of Project Thunderchild. Kinetic kill platforms now surrounded every human colony. When High Commander Vexthar tried to attack a human supply depot, thinking it was safe behind Vrax lines, the platform activated. A tungsten rod accelerated to 90% of light speed. It struck the Vrax military shipyard before anyone even detected it. The kinetic energy released was equal to a nuclear bomb. The entire facility vanished in a flash of light. 3,000 Vrax died instantly. 12 hours later, another strike hit a forward operating base. Then another hit a fuel depot. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe. Humanity's primitive weapons could reach anywhere. On day 42 of the Battle of New Seoul, the Vrax finally broke through the last defenses. Private Yoon Ji-ho's unit made their final stand in the Colonial Administration building. They were out of ammunition. They were wounded and exhausted. They knew they were going to die. It's been an honor, Private Yoon Ji-ho said to the 3 other survivors with him. They detonated the building's reactor. The explosion killed everyone inside. 4 humans and 87 Virax warriors who had been trying to capture them. High Commander Vexithar stood in the ruins of New Seoul. The colony was his. The battle was won, but he had lost 200,000 warriors taking it. 200,000. to conquer a single human city. How many more colonies do they have? He asked Korvan. 14, his aide replied quietly, and Earth itself. Vexthar looked at the burning city. The cost was too high. This war was supposed to be easy. Instead, every victory felt like a defeat. His warriors were demoralized. Supply lines were broken. And back home, the protests were growing. Send a message to the fleet, Vexthar ordered. We advance to the next colony. We will break them. But his voice lacked conviction. For the first time in Vrak's history, a high commander was doubting whether victory was possible. On Earth, Admiral Choi Minho received the reports from New Seoul. The colony was lost. 50,000 human soldiers had died, 150,000 civilians killed in the crossfire. But the Vraks had lost 200,000 warriors. They had spent 6 weeks taking a single city. Their supply situation was critical, and most importantly, their morale was cracking. New Seoul was a massacre, Colonel Kang Sora said softly. Was it worth it? Admiral Choi Minho looked at the casualty lists. He saw names. Each one had been a person with family, dreams, and hopes. Each one had died because he had ordered them to fight. I don't know, he admitted, but it bought us time. And time is the only weapon we have that the Vraks can't counter. He activated the communication system. All colonies, this is Admiral Choi Minho. New Seoul has fallen, but they held for 6 weeks. They made the Vraks pay for every street. We mourn our dead, but we continue the fight. Remember, they have to conquer us. We just have to survive, and humans are very, very good at surviving. Across human space, millions of people heard that message. In bunkers and fortresses and makeshift defensive positions, they prepared for the Vraks to come. They were scared. They were outnumbered, but they were not surrendering. The war was far from over. But the Vraks were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had declared war on a species that didn't know how to quit. High Commander Vexthar stood before the assembled Vrak Senate. Behind him, holographic displays showed the war's progress. 10 human colonies had fallen. 4 remained. And Earth, the human homeworld, sat waiting like a final challenge. We have lost over 1 million warriors, a senator said. His voice carried accusation. 1 million to conquer a species that has existed in space for barely 300 years. How is this acceptable? Vexthar felt rage building in his chest. We are winning. Every human colony has fallen before us. Yes, they fight harder than expected. Yes, they use cowardly tactics. But we are Vraks, we will finish this. At what cost? Another senator demanded. Our people are protesting. They question whether this war serves the Empire. They ask why so many of their children die fighting primitives. Primitives who know how to fight, Vexthar snapped. Primitives who would rather burn their own cities than surrender them intact. But they are still primitives. I will gather 60% of our entire armada. 2,000 warships. We will strike at Earth directly. When their homeworld falls, their resistance ends, the Senate murmured. 2,000 ships was the largest fleet assembled in Vrak's history. It would leave their borders vulnerable. But it would also end this war once and for all. You have authorization, the Senate leader said. But High Commander, this must succeed. The Empire cannot afford failure. Not now, Vexthar bowed. I will not fail. On Earth, President Han Jae-min couldn't sleep. He stood in his office at 3 a.m, looking at a tablet that showed the status of Project Genesis. 50 relativistic kill vehicles, each targeted at a major city on the Vrak's homeworld. One button press would send them flying at 90% of light speed. Nothing could stop them. Nothing could intercept them. Billions would die. Admiral Choi Minho entered without knocking. The old military commander looked even more tired than the president. You're thinking about it, he said. It wasn't a question. How can I not? President Han Jae-min replied. We built weapons that can commit genocide. We aim them at a planet full of civilians, children, families, people who never asked for this war. The Vraks did the same to us, Admiral Choi pointed out. They destroyed our colonies without hesitation. They killed civilians without mercy. Does that make us better? President Han Jae-min asked. If we become monsters to fight monsters, what does that make us? Admiral Choi was quiet for a long moment. It makes us survivors, he said finally. Mr. President, I've studied every major war in human history. You want to know what I learned? The side that's willing to do whatever it takes usually wins. The Vraks thought we would surrender because fighting would cost too much. They were wrong. Now we have to show them that we're willing to pay any price, even the price of our own souls. President Han Jamin looked at the tablet again. I've already entered the launch codes. I'm just waiting for the authorization command. Then let's hope you never have to give it, Admiral Choi said. Captain Bayek Hanna flew her fighter through the Kuiper Belt, the distant edge of the solar system. Around her, 1,500 other pilots formed humanity's last defense line. They were all that stood between the Vrax Armada and Earth. All fighters, this is Admiral Choi Minho. The communication system crackled. The Vrax fleet will arrive in 6 hours. We've counted 2,000 ships. We have 800 vessels to oppose them. The odds are not in our favor. Captain Bekhana smiled grimly. The odds had never been in humanity's favor. Our mission is simple, Admiral Choi continued. Slow them down. Make them pay for every meter they advance. Buy time for the evacuation transports to get civilians off Earth. You all volunteered for this. You all knew it might be one way. I'm proud to serve with you. Earth is proud of you. Now show the Virax what humanity looks like when we're defending our home. The channel closed. Captain Bayek Hanna checked her fighter systems. Fuel was full. Weapons were armed. She had a fusion warhead mounted under her cockpit, set to detonate on proximity to a capital ship. She thought about her daughter, safely evacuated to Mars. She thought about her wife, who had begged her not to volunteer. She thought about the life she was probably about to lose. Then she thought about what would happen if the Vrax won. Her family enslaved, her species broken. Everything humanity had built turned to ash. Worth it, she whispered to herself. The Vrax Armada dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule. 2,000 warships, each one massive and deadly. They moved in perfect formation toward Earth. High Commander Vexithar stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this was the final battle. Enemy forces detected, his tactical officer reported. 800 ships. They're forming a defensive line. Destroy them, Vexithar ordered. All weapons, fire at will. The space between the Kuiper Belt and Earth became hell. Human fighters made kamikaze runs, each pilot manually guiding their fusion warhead into the largest Virax ships they could find. Automated defense platforms throughout the asteroid belt activated, creating a three-dimensional minefield. Civilian vessels, hastily armed with railguns, joined the battle despite having no military training. Captain Beck Hanna destroyed 3 Vrax destroyers before her fighter was hit. Her cockpit depressurized. She had maybe 10 seconds of consciousness left. She pointed her fighter at a Vrax carrier and activated the fusion warhead. For Earth, she said, the warhead detonated. The carrier vanished in a ball of nuclear fire, taking 2,000 Virax warriors with it. The Battle of Sol lasted 14 hours. When it was over, 90% of humanity's space navy was gone. Thousands of brave pilots had died, but they had accomplished their mission. The Vrax fleet had lost 600 ships, and they had been delayed long enough for the civilian transports to escape. High Commander Vexthar looked at his casualty reports in disbelief. 600 ships, 30,000 warriors, and they hadn't even reached Earth yet. Continue the advance, he ordered, but his voice shook slightly. In Earth's command bunker, the remaining military leaders gathered around Admiral Choi Minho. The situation was desperate. The Vrax would reach orbit in 2 hours. Earth's ground defenses would hold for maybe a day. President Han Jamin picked up the tablet controlling Project Genesis. His hand trembled. I need your counsel, he said to the assembled officers. Do we launch? Dr. Park Ji-won, who had returned from the front lines to Earth, spoke first. If we do this, we become the monsters they claimed we were. We kill billions of innocent people, Engineer Oh Taejin responded. If we don't, everything we fought for dies. Every sacrifice made was for nothing. Admiral Choi Minho said nothing. He had already made his choice. The launch codes were entered. He was waiting for the president's decision. President Han Jamin looked at each person in the room. Then he made the hardest choice of his life. Send a message to the Vrax homeworld. Broadcast it on every channel they have. The communication officer worked quickly. 30 seconds later, every screen on the Vrax homeworld displayed President Han Jamin's face. People of the Vrax Empire, he began. I am President Han Jamin of Earth. Your military is currently invading my homeworld. They are about to kill billions of my people. I want you to know that I have the power to do the same to you. Right now, 50 weapons are flying toward your homeworld at 90% of light speed. They will arrive in 30 minutes. Your military cannot stop them. Your shields will not save you. Billions of you will die. On the Vrak's homeworld, people stopped in the streets staring at screens in horror. I don't want to give this order, President Han Yemin continued. His voice was steady, but tears ran down his face. But I will. Unless your government surrenders unconditionally in the next 30 minutes, both our species end today. You started this war demanding we abandon our homes. I'm ending it by threatening yours. Choose. The broadcast ended. Across the Vrak's empire, chaos erupted. On the flagship approaching Earth, Korvan turned to High Commander Vexthar. Sir, we need to withdraw. If they launch those weapons, they won't, Vexthar insisted. It's a bluff. Continue the advance. Korvan looked at his commander, at the arrogance that had cost so many lives, at the pride that refused to admit this war had been a mistake. He made a decision that would save billions of lives. Korvan drew his sidearm and shot High Commander Vexthar. As his commander fell, Korvan opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Korvan. I am assuming command. All ships cease fire immediately. Withdraw to safe distance from Earth. What are you doing? An officer demanded. Saving our species, Korvan replied. This war is over. 3 months after the war ended, Captain Lee Do-hyun stood at the window of the rebuilt Remembrance watching the stars drift past. The ship that had once been called New Horizon, the ship where 3 of his crew had been murdered, now carried a mixed group of humans and Vraks to the Kepler 442 system. They were going to build a colony together. A monument to peace. It seemed impossible. Just months ago, they had been trying to kill each other. Captain, Dr. Park Ji-won said, entering the bridge. We're 3 hours from arrival. The Vrak's engineers are nervous. They're not sure how the human colonists will react to them. Captain Lee Do-hyun understood. The wounds were still fresh. 4 million humans dead. 2.3 million Vraks dead. Every family on both sides had lost someone. Tell them we remember our dead by building something better, Captain Lee Do-hyun said. Not by staying at war forever. Dr. Park Ji-won smiled sadly. You sound like the Admiral. Admiral Choi Min-ho had retired immediately after the war. He had given a final speech at the memorial for the fallen. Millions watched as the old warrior stood before a wall listing names of the dead. We won, he had said, but I'm not sure what we won means anything. We survived. We kept our freedom. But look at the cost. He gestured to the wall of names. These people didn't want to be heroes. They wanted to live, to raise families, to see their grandchildren. We took that from them when we chose to fight. The Vraks took it when they started this war. There are no winners here, only survivors and ghosts. He had paused, looking old and tired. People will study this war. They'll call it humanity's finest hour. They'll say we showed the galaxy what we're made of. Maybe they're right. But I want you to remember something else. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we were willing to lose everything. That's not something to celebrate. That's something to mourn. After that speech, Admiral Choi Min-ho had disappeared from public life. He lived in a small house in the mountains, refusing interviews, refusing honors. Some said he was haunted by the choices he made. Others said he was at peace. No one knew for sure. Colonel Kang Sora had taken a different path. She wrote a book about the war, focusing on asymmetric warfare tactics. It became required reading at military academies across the galaxy, including Vrak's academies. Young officers from dozens of species studied how humanity had turned weakness into strength, how they had made every disadvantage into a weapon. The book's introduction was simple. We won because we fought dirty. We won because we refused to follow their rules. We won because we were willing to do whatever it took to survive. If you're reading this, it means your species might face a similar situation someday. Learn from us. But also learn this. Victory at any cost still costs everything. Engineer O. Tajan had spent the months after the war dismantling Project Genesis. The 50 relativistic kill vehicles that had nearly destroyed the Vrak's homeworld were taken apart, their components scattered across different storage facilities. Humanity kept the knowledge, kept the capability, but destroyed the actual weapons. We're keeping the sword sheathed, Engineer O. Tajan explained to reporters. But everyone knows we have it. That's the point. The best weapon is the one you never have to use. President Han Jae-min had not sought re-election. He couldn't. Every night he woke up from nightmares where he pressed the button, where billions died because of his decision, In interviews, people called him a hero for showing restraint. "I'm not a hero," he insisted. "I nearly committed genocide. The fact that I didn't have to doesn't change what I was willing to do. I live with that knowledge every day." His memoir, published a year after the war, was brutally honest. He described the moment when his hand was on the authorization button, 12 seconds from launching weapons that would kill billions. He described how easy it would have been to press it, how much of him wanted to press it, wanted revenge for every human who had died. "The scariest moment of my life," he wrote, "was realizing I could do it, that I was capable of that level of violence. War doesn't just kill people's bodies. It kills parts of their souls." The Vrax Empire had changed dramatically. Korvan, the young officer who had shot High Commander Vexthar, faced trial for mutiny and murder. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The whole galaxy watched. In the end, the Vrax courts acquitted him. The judge's statement was short. Korvan killed one to save billions. He ended an illegal war started on false premises. He saved both our species. If that is treason, then we need more traitors. Korvan became the new head of Vrax military reform. He worked tirelessly to change the Empire's warrior culture. In speeches across Vrax territory, he repeated the same message. We were taught that strength meant conquest, that honor meant victory. We were wrong. Strength is knowing when not to fight. Honor is admitting when you're wrong. Rindal, the soldier who had been captured at New Seoul and treated kindly by Dr. Park Ji-won, opened a cultural exchange center on the Vrax homeworld. He taught Vrax children about humanity, not as enemies, but as people. He showed them videos from the war, but not the battles. He showed them the video diary of Private Yoon Ji-ho. The young human soldier's words resonated across species. "I'm scared. I don't want to die. I miss my family. I wish this war never happened." These were feelings everyone understood. Vrax children saw that humans weren't monsters. They were people who fought because they had no choice. Private Yoon Ji-ho had survived the Battle of New Seoul by pure luck. He had been unconscious in the rubble when the building exploded. Vrax medics against orders had pulled him out and saved his life. After the war, he became a filmmaker. His documentary series, War Diaries, won awards across the galaxy. In one episode, he interviewed the Vrax medic who saved him. "Why did you save me?" Yoon Ji-ho asked. The Vrax medic was quiet for a long time. "Because I was tired of killing," he finally said. "Because I saw your face and knew you didn't want to die any more than I did. Because somewhere in that moment I remembered that war is supposed to have rules, limits, lines we don't cross." Captain Bayek Hana had not survived the Battle of Seoul. Her daughter, now 10 years old, stood at the memorial wall every year on the anniversary of her mother's death. She touched her mother's name carved in stone along with thousands of others. What was she like? Other children would ask. "Brave," the daughter would reply. "She was brave because she was scared." "Anyone can fight when they're not afraid," Mom thought, even though she knew she would probably die. That's real courage. The girl wore her mother's flight wings on a chain around her neck. She wanted to be a pilot too, not to fight wars but to explore, to find new worlds, to build instead of destroy. The Galactic Council held a special session 6 months after the war. 47 species that the Vrax had conquered regained their independence. The Vrax Empire apologized and paid reparations. It wasn't enough. It could never be enough. But it was something. Humanity gained something unexpected. Respect. Not for military might, but for restraint. President Han Jae-min had the power to commit genocide and chose mercy. That decision resonated across the galaxy. "When the Vrax invaded," said Krell of the Sistrix Commonwealth, "I thought humanity would be erased. Instead, they taught the galaxy a lesson we'd forgotten. There are species you can conquer and species you can only kill. Humanity proved they were the latter, and they proved willing to take their enemies with them. That changes everything." The Treaty of New Seoul was signed on the ruins of the bloodiest battlefield. Human and Vrax diplomats met where millions had died. The treaty's preamble, written by Dr. Park Ji-won and Korvan together, was simple. No species should face the choice between extinction and extermination. This treaty ensures both our peoples remember the cost of forgetting that principle. 2 years after the war, a monument was erected in Geneva. It was a simple wall, black stone listing every name. Human and Vrax, 4 million humans, 2.3 million Vrax. Every single person who died, the inscription read, Here are remembered all who died in the Vrax-Human War. They died as enemies. They are mourned as people. May future generations never forget the cost. Captain Lee Do-hyun and Dr. Park Ji-won stood at the memorial. They were older now, grayer. They had survived a war neither wanted. Do you think it made a difference? Captain Lee Do-hyun asked. All the fighting? All the dying? Dr. Park Ji-won looked at the wall of names. So many names. Each one had been a person with dreams, with families, with futures that were stolen. The galaxy used to think humans were soft, she said. Now they know we're not. Whether that's better or worse, I don't know. What do you think happens next? Captain Lee Do-hyun asked. We rebuild, Dr. Park Ji-won replied. We remember. We make sure it never happens again. That's all we can do. Above them, a transport lifted off, heading for the stars. Aboard were human and Vrax students traveling to a joint university. The next generation learning together, building something new from the ashes of war. The war had ended not with total victory, but with exhausted understanding. Both sides had learned the same lesson. War costs too much. Peace is harder than fighting, but it's worth the effort. 3 years after the war, Ensign Kim Yuna, who had been at the navigation station when Commander Thalrex first boarded the New Horizon, became captain of her own ship. She named it New Dawn. Her mission was exploration,